There is a lot of anticipation as the market opens this week after last week we saw Bitcoin plunge from $103,000. So this week everybody is wondering if that downside is going to continue, or will we see our bounce now considering we held the support level? I'm going to get into that. I'm going to do a deep dive on Bitcoin in this video, give you my overall thoughts, and see if we can pick where the market is going to head this week. So if you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm Annie. This is 𝗟𝗶𝗿𝗃𝗲. Sorry for the super late video, but it is my birthday, and so my friends did take me out to celebrate. But nevertheless, I am here and I am giving you the market open update before the market actually opens. So if you appreciate that, be sure to hit that like button and also hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Now let's get into the Bitcoin price action. I'm going to start on the higher time frame here. I'm starting on the daily time frame, and what I want to point out is that even though last week felt dramatic, at the end of the day we did hold the daily support at around say $92,000. So that's fairly positive. We do expect the bounce there, which is what we've got. However, we got the bounce, but we don't yet have any follow through. And that's simply because the bounce came, we went into the weekend, and the weekend tends to be low volume. So that's why we're kind of sitting in this state of, was that the bounce that's going to lead back to the upside, or was that just a retracement that's going to lead to further downside? So when we pay attention to the daily time frame currently, we have to point out the facts that are there. Right now, the resistance is at about $106,000 and the support is at about $92,000. Right now, we do have a lower high after the initial peak, and in the initial peak, we have this magenta vector right here. We can see when we mark out the middle part of this magenta vector, we get this yellow line here, and that is where price returned to and failed to get above. So that's not positive because that does signal a lower high. It's a potential M formation. We did break through the 50 EMA with volume. So when we're looking at the daily, it is possible that this is an M formation here, which would mean that we're at risk of further downside. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to drop all three levels. Number one, this would already be level 1 through here. It also doesn't mean that we need to drop down further in price, because levels can go sideways. If we have a look at the last time Bitcoin chopped for a really long time, which was here, we sat here for months. This was the M formation through here, and then this was a drop level 1. This through here was drop level 2, and this through here was drop level 3 before we got the W formation. So all in all, that really was just sideways drops for the most part, with the final spike low to trap the final traders before the trend actually changed. So don't freak out that we're seeing an M formation on the daily time frame. Something like this could actually repeat, but then that does also put us at risk of this type of move happening towards the end of it as well, and that could have us seeing around the 80 kind of region. We'll have a look at the heat maps to kind of get a better number, but we do know that there's a lot of liquidity here in this zone. This zone sits between 77.6 to about $91,000 currently. So unless Bitcoin can change the structure within this current consolidation here, we do have to still be prepared for further downside. The positive is we're currently holding support. The negative is we have a lower high. And so that's why we really do need to be open to both scenarios, and we need to set our conditions for where we will turn bullish and set our conditions for where we will turn bearish. Right now, we should be neutral. And I'm talking specifically when we're talking about the daily time frame. Now, when we drop down to the lower time frames, I'm on the 1 hour time frame. We want to see how our levels are playing out so far. We can see last week before last now, actually, we had the W formation that led to our 3 rises that ran over an entire week. And then we had this move here, which was very tricky. It is a strategy within the TBD system. However, if you don't know the strategy, getting your short position here was very, very tricky. And I actually did do a Twitter post about it, telling you the 3 different ways in which you could have actually got that position. We did catch it. Some of us caught it in TTC. We got a really good entry around here, pretty much at the peak formation high. And following through that, we saw our 3 level drops through here. Now, I'm a bit iffy about the 3 level drops. I'm not honestly 100% certain that I've got my counts right. I'll tell you what makes me think it's possible is the fact that the 3rd drop stopped here at the low of the week, and then we had a follow through with a higher low. And so that's a pretty good spot to get a change in direction. So we have our first low here, and then our second low was here on the news event. And ever since then, we haven't returned to that price. So that's the positive for that. We also had long orders at around the 92K range. They held, and you know, at the end of the day, that kind of qualifies for now, but it does take us into the weekend where we know we have the weekend trap. So if we mark out the weekend price action as it is now until we're expecting the market to open, the weekend trap isn't currently giving us any hints of anything. We really just have consolidation. So it is possible that this is a W formation, this is the consolidation, and then we may go through for more rises. But I'm not saying to the upside. I've got a lot of things I need to tell you about what to be careful of this week, because this whole move that closed the week could absolutely be a trap, just to trap traders into weekend sideways price action, which is what we're seeing right now. So the reason I'm saying don't rule out further downside when we look at the macro picture, and it's possible that we still have more downside to come, the micro picture does look like there's a good chance for it to turn around. And this all makes me a little bit suspicious. So there's been a lot of reasons put out there as to why this dump happened, a lot of fake reasons actually, and a lot of those reasons have been disproven anyway. But one reason that I believe has not yet been disproven was that BlackRock was actually selling. Now, if that's true, then here's what I think may happen when the market opens this week. First of all, Asia has a bank holiday. Japan has a bank holiday. So the Asia session may not be typical. The typical Asia session is to run sideways consolidation, set the initial high of the day, set the initial low of the day, usually no more than a 2% range. So if we're having a bank holiday, that means the market makers are off. That gives whales and manipulators an easier chance to manipulate the price because the volume tends to be lower. That means they don't need as much money to move the market. So if Asia doesn't run a typical session, like if it runs a trend, for example, I would be very, very careful about that, about believing that, you know, let's just say it runs the trend to the upside. I would still be very hesitant to believe that we are bullish from here and we don't have to worry about it. Of course, if the rules present, you know, if everything presents to take the long position, you take the long position, but you need to be checking again at session changeovers for a change in the trend and for a hint that it may be over. If Asia and UK both run the trend to the upside, or one consolidates and one runs a trend to the upside, I would 100% be watching what the US session does. Because what we don't know right now is if BlackRock were actually selling last week, we don't know if they're done with that or if it's going to continue. So if it continues, we would expect it to continue in the US session. And that's why I'm saying whatever way the trend goes on Asia or UK session, just look to see if we get a reversal when the US session opens. If we don't, fantastic. Stay in your trade if you happen to get an entry. But I would not be banking on the trend that is created either in Asia or UK to be the 3-day swing until the US proves to me that that's what it wants it to be. So besides the Asia bank holiday or Japan bank holiday tomorrow, we also do have some news events that we've got to be aware of this week. All of them could create reversals or volatility like we saw over here. So we need to be very, very careful. It's not a week of easy trading yet again. I hate to tell you. I actually did a Twitter post earlier this week saying how hard this cycle is, and it really is. You know, as a confident trader, I still feel like this cycle is much harder than the past 2 cycles that I've been a part of, and it feels like we're always waiting for something. I don't personally think that waiting is over. You know, we've got so many economic news events. We've got the inauguration coming up. We've got FOMC after that. I just feel like January is the month to be extremely careful. And if the trend isn't obvious, we just have to wait a bit longer. And I think it's a good month to zoom out and, you know, plan even if you're not actually taking action, you know, zoom out and look at things that maybe you want to buy that you haven't bought yet and mark your levels and get ready to buy if they come into your buy zones, but it may not be an action taking week when there's just so much going on. So with that in mind, Tuesday we've got PPI, Wednesday we've got CPI, Thursday we've got unemployment claims, and Friday GBP retail sales, not so much. But really every day this week there is something, and that may present a difficult to trade kind of week. When we have a look at the current orders, we do have shorts. Now this has been sitting here all weekend. I've been keeping an eye on it. So we do have shorts waiting at 96,100. That really is just to keep the range, you know, sideways kind of thing, but they're there. So we have shorts waiting at 96,100. We have longs waiting at 92,000. So when you have a look at that on the chart, that is this level right here, which would be just above the 200 EMA. And we have back down here where we kind of came into and changed the structure. So if the price moves up into these 96,100, it may not be too bad, because it may just be price breaking above the 50 EMA to make its way through the 200 EMA, which is what price is really supposed to do. Now, those orders aren't huge either. So if this sort of idea was to happen and we break to the upside and we don't get a strong rejection there, that's where I would actually be looking for a trend change with a higher low. And then I would expect that once those orders are filled and taken out, we'll continue to the upside. Now, this is of course dependent on the price breaking out of the weekend trap number one, which it's too early for it to do that. So I'm just giving you an idea of what to look out for. I'm not saying it's actually going to happen, but it would depend on price first breaking out, then breaking the 200 EMA, then going to these short orders, then not having a seriously negative reaction from there, but creating the higher low. That's where you would get a bit more confidence that price is going to continue up. Now, again, I remind you, if that play does happen and price continues up, whether that happens in Asia or UK, just be very aware that it could be a false move to drive the price higher before the US opens. And if BlackRock in fact is still selling, they're going to want to be selling at the highest price possible. That's why I think it's very possible that Asia and UK, or one or the other, drives price up and US brings it back down. And that's why I'm saying that those lower targets are not off the table just yet. However, what will invalidate that feeling is if we get a move like this where the trend breaks out, creates a higher low, we get continuation, and then when US opens, we don't get a reversal. Then we know we're kind of okay for now and we can start targeting higher prices. The other play could be that it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't break out at all. So it changes structure from within and we go down, and then we have to reassess what happens at 92K. Or it breaks out, but it breaks out with a stop hunt looking candle. So a candle with a big wick to the upside, and it does a big rejection off these sell orders. Then we don't repeat the level. We don't create a higher high. We create, in fact, a lower high. That's where we would expect that there is more downside to come. And if we got a play like this, this is where I would say, earlier I said to you, I'm not 100% certain about these counts. That's because level 2 and 3 doesn't normally look like this. So that's where I would believe that level 3 is actually here, and we actually are going down lower potentially to break the daily support that we have currently at 92K. So if that kind of a play were to happen, where would our targets be? We're going to go back here, and that would mean that the initial target was at 92, as I said. But if these don't cause a bounce and we continue to break down further, then the $88,000 orders are still there. So that would become the next target after. There's probably another one here that we should be aware of at around 90,000. So 92, 90,000, 88. If we end up breaking the support and moving further to the downside, those are going to be our 3 targets for now. Another reason why I think it's possible that we move up through a couple of sessions and we be aware of a potential US reversal is because of the liquidity that we have right now. We can see this on HighBlock, that when we're looking at the Bitcoin liquidations over the weekend, the delta currently is at $14.9 billion with a lot of liquidity over here to the upside. So that's possible. It's possible that we run a trend up, we take out some of this lower liquidity here, the easy ones to get, and then we come back down for this over here. Or the trend could continue because the liquidity is very high above price as well. Because the delta right now is to the shorts, what that means is that there are more people short currently than they are long. So by reversing the price, even if it's temporary, it's going to liquidate some short positions, whether it hits stop losses or it hits their liquidation level. If they don't have stop losses, it's going to have that damage by moving up, but it's also going to trigger people into longs. And if that turns out to be a false trigger, then the longs get committed and then they come down the other way and end up liquidating them as well. Now, before I move on, if you're looking for an exchange to trade on, consider Bitunix. Bitunix is a non-KYC exchange. It is the exchange that I trade on. It's one of my favorites. And on Bitunix, you can trade both spot and futures with hundreds and hundreds of pairs available for you to trade with. Not to mention, if you use the link in the description of this video, you will get a 20% trading fee discount for life. And if you follow the directions in the description of this video, you will also be able to access the free side of our Discord. Now, we are considering closing that soon. So if you are wanting to get that one step closer to us, be sure to use the link down below to get yourself in there before we close it forever. So I hope I've made those two scenarios clear of what to look out for, but let's have a look at what's going on with our altcoins. Just a general overview here of all of our dominances and all that sort of stuff. Last week, I pointed out the potential for Bitcoin dominance to create a W formation. It's still in the process of doing that. It's certainly not a confirmed W yet. It needs to come up and break the center peak here, which it hasn't done yet, but it has created the higher low at this point in time, and it has got itself back above the EMAs. So if Bitcoin does follow through with this W, then that means all the money is going to shift back into Bitcoin, and we don't know how it's going to affect your alts. Your alts will either go sideways or they will dump even further. Just depends on a few other factors, like what the Bitcoin price is doing at the same time. We may not be in the phase of Bitcoin dominance actually breaking down or continuing to break down just yet. Bitcoin dominance has a very key zone at the 62.79 or 62.8 area right up here. And so if this W does confirm and we get that move to the upside and we end up there, then again, like that could mean not amazing things for your altcoins. It could just signal to you, we thought it was alt season, but it's not alt season just yet. So then we combine that with having a look at the total market cap, excluding the top 10. And we've got a bit of a situation here because we have a symmetrical triangle, which could break to the downside, could break to the upside, but where it's sitting right now doesn't look very bullish to me. We've got a lot of candles here struggling to hold the 200 EMA. If it breaks below them, then this is going to be a triangle that breaks to the downside, which again means money moving out of your altcoins, and then we have to look at the other dominances to see where it's actually shifting to. So what we really need to see with the total market cap is we need to see this actually hold when the market opens and actually get a bounce and start to move to the upside. It's really on the edge right now. And so this is one worth watching very carefully if you're holding altcoins to know what to do next. When we have a look at Solana dominance as well, I mean, this is going to give us a key because Solana is a very, very popular altcoin. And on last week's video, I spoke to you about the breakdown, was covering that a month ago. Last week, I spoke about the potential retest and rejection of the EMAs. That has now happened, but we haven't broken down to create a lower low yet. So this is another one worth watching. If we break down, we could just repeat the last low at about 2.64%. If we break down further, we'd be expecting about 2.3%, but that could mean if Solana's bleeding out, probably most of your other altcoins are going to be bleeding out as well. So then that brings us to have a look at ETHBTC. And again, it just every time it looks like it wants to create the W formation off a key area, the W formation fails. It's really not fantastic for our altcoins. So we thought we may get a W here. We got another touch to the trend line. So we got another lower high and we're moving back down again. So this W is no longer valid really. We've come back and eaten into most of this vector here. So the last chance one to stay clear of is here, which at this point we have, but it's not looking great, you know? And so if ETHBTC continues to move to the downside, then we're coming back all the way to, you know, 20 2021 to look at the next kind of levels, which could be anywhere in this vector candle right here, and that is between 0.023 to 0.03. So again, we're hanging on for dear life here. If there's any point in investing in Ethereum, we need to see it break out and start to change structure, and it just seems to be disappointment after disappointment with that one. However, one altcoin that is looking good right now is XRP. We have been in this flag for a long time. I mentioned on a prior video to look for this sort of a structure right here to expect a breakout, and we've got the breakout today. Being a weekend, we have to be a bit careful about it. We want to make sure it doesn't turn out to be a fake breakout. So what we'd be waiting for next on this is a retest again to create yet another high low to prove the trend change. Then we'll be more happy with XRP at this point in time. But XRP is looking like our only saving grace so far.